Welcome to the championship final of the 24th annual NIBS Worldwide Business Case Competition. At this time, we ask that you turn off all cellular telephones and other mobile devices. As a courtesy to the presenters, please do not leave until both the presentation and the question and answer session are complete. Please note that recording of presentations is strictly prohibited except by competition organizers or representatives of the presenting team. The team presenting today is from Rotterdam. The presentation will last a maximum of 20 minutes. I will signal to the presenters when there are 10, 5, 3, and 1 minute left. Team members, please nod after seeing each sign to confirm that you have seen it. You must stop when I indicate that time is up, even if you are not finished. After the presentation, the judging panel will have 10 minutes to ask questions. I will signal to the presenters and judges when there are 5, 3, and 1 minute left. Once again, you must stop when time is up, even if you are not finished. I now invite each member of our judging panel to introduce themselves, and the team will then begin the presentation.
Hi, I'm Don Wagner, and I am an associate professor here at the Faculty of Business, and I'm also director of our MBA program in global leadership. And for the purposes of this competition, I will assume the role of VP Strategy.
Hi, I'm Whitney Hooper. I'm a Senior Planning Officer with Veterans Affairs Canada. And for the purposes of today, I will be the Chief Marketing Officer.
Hi, I'm Jordan McNally. I work for the province of Prince Edward Island as a Senior Budget Analyst. And the purpose of today, I'll be the CFO.
I'm Kevin Murphy. I'm CEO owner of Murphy Hospitality Group, Prince Edward Island. And today I'll be representing the owner, Xavier.
Good afternoon. My name is Kathy O'Rourke. I'm the managing partner for Grant Thornton on Prince Edward Island. And today I am your Chief People and Culture Officer.
Kai. Most of you probably do not recognize that phrase, but for those who do, I'm sure you've had an awesome childhood and an even more amazing adulthood. This is Guus, Wesley, I'm Daniel. This is Nathan, and I'm Daniel, and today we will be presenting about the challenge, how should Kidzania grow to maintain its market position and continue differentiating the brand. And the main solution we have thought for this is to go for an interactive online platform to extend the limits of the physical parks. So for this, the main goal is to grow the company with the current capabilities it has. And the three main key issues we have found for this are the company's innovation, which has two sides to it, the adaptability and the competition that you are seeing both direct and indirectly.
Thank you. So we've looked at your business model, and honestly we were quite impressed. Such a connection between different elements and integrating so many different interests that are aligned in this model. It's quite an impressive model. I want to take you through the key takeaway that we found here is that the main points of leverage are the loyalty, because the revenue is driven by parents, but the parents' loyalty is driven by the children. And the stakeholders, which are quite an important part of this model because they are integrated throughout the model. So let's take a look at these stakeholders. They have various different interests. So for children, they mostly just want to have fun, and they want to learn and explore new things. And also they want autonomy and decide for themselves what they want to do. The parents share this view of their children, but they also want them to do so in a safe and controlled environment. For the schools and teachers, the main interest is that they can reinforce the content that they teach in our parks. And for the malls, there's a triple benefit. We pay them rent, or our parks pay them rent. They can differentiate themselves and attract traffic through our parks. And then for the industry that is involved in developing the content of the parks, it's a way for them to engage in non-intrusive communication into the children at a young age. So we need to play into the 5 different categories carefully when designing a new model or making any changes.
So when we zoom out and we have a look at the actual edu entertainment environment, we see that we have a lot of direct and indirect competition. You can of course see the parties on the board, but the main key takeaway of this analysis is that there are many copies, there are many similar concepts, and many edu and entertainment alternatives. And this makes that Kidzania has to differentiate with a concept that cannot be easily copied.
So when we look at the screen time of the kids that we target, between 8 years and 14 years old, we see that they spend most of their time watching television, and that only at a later age they start diversifying into internet and smartphone usage. And the key takeaway here is that we want to move kids from the less engaging, less interactive television to use more of the internet.
So when we analyze your current financial situation, we have to compliment you on the financial structure. Because, you know, revenue is going up, cost is going down, you're actually doing pretty well. However, and there's a reason, there's a currency fluctuation over here. The fluctuation of the peso really hurted the revenue stream of the company for the past years. And if we go to the next slide, we calculated that the total currency cost at this moment is estimated at about 7 million pesos. And therefore, Kidzania should mitigate the risk of this currency fluctuation.
So now to go over the options. We have identified 4 main options. The first and most obvious one is to expand and go make new parks, because obviously there's a lot of demand for the parks. A second option, a little bit different, is to actually go to smaller villages and try to attract areas to come to the park, try to have the families come for outings and all that kind of stuff. The third option is a bit more creative. It's making a movie and having this movie promote the company all over the world, and thereby creating a lot more demand, is really the concept. And the last option is a digital platform. Now, some of the first 2 options are great. They're reacting to demand. However, they are not very innovative, as we mentioned as one of our key issues are. And making the movie is also an amazing option. However, this requires a lot of investment. Needless to say, also a lot of time. Especially, we were thinking about this, an animation movie, for instance, can cost 8 to 12 years to make alone, which would lag the process of the promotion for your company a lot. Therefore, we think the digital platform in this case is the best. And to further emphasize this, we have actually looked at what the most important decision criteria are for you. And at the top, we put there innovation-driven. The company has to be adaptable. The plan, therefore, also needs to be adaptable, because the world is continuously changing. The jobs that grown-ups have are also continuously changing. The option has to be scalable, because we really want to grab the potential that the company has. Of course, it has to be profitable, and if possible, avoid any risks. So when we look at this, we see that the digital platform wins with 1 or more points on all of these issues. Therefore, this is what we will move forward with from now on. So to recap one more time, the challenge: how should Kidzania grow to maintain its market position and continue differentiating the brand? The solution: through extending the Kidzania experience beyond the parks, beyond its physical borders.
Yeah, so we add to that a digital dimension, and that yields a new vision that's more inclusive, and also a new strategy. I want to read this out because we formulated it quite carefully. To stretch the Kidzania community beyond the physical boundaries and thereby create a lasting impact on children and the world they create. And the way we do this is to leverage the concept, the loyalty structure, and the education content through an integrated digital platform that unites all the Kidzanias into a single community. Now, there's 3 parts to this new digital element: the platform itself, the content that's used on it, and the communities that link them. So, developing a platform is an exciting new activity, but it's not really in our core capabilities. So, we are a large enough organization to afford an implementation consultant. And then the next step would be to send out an expression of interest and gather proposals from different platform developers. And then the one we select should be open to a long-term partnership, because we want to keep improving the platform and change the content of it continuously. This is not a burden that we want to put on Kidzania organization. The criteria that the partner should accept are for the platform to be globally accessible, have a child-friendly user experience, have to be adaptable in its content and flexible in how it's used. And I want to move on to the next point, which is the content, which Wesley will explain for you.
Thank you. So, what a beautiful concept is this? And of course, when it's a platform, it's all about educating the children, but also about entertaining the children, the content of the platform is one of the most important aspects. So what we visualize here for you are 4 sources that you should get your content from. And first I would like to point out the partner schools in the industry. These are 2 really valuable sources of content and proposed information for children to educate themselves in a fun way. And nowadays, really stipulated problem is that there's a difference between what schools want the children to learn and what the industry wants children to learn. So we actually want Kidzania to close that gap and bring those 2 parties closer together, so that they can source content from both the schools and the industries, that they can evaluate the content and improve it over time. Go back, Nico. Thank you. The other sources that you should source from are the regional communities, as is done now, but also looking at worldwide trends. So, for example, the increasing demand for science, technology, and engineering and mathematics students is something that should be stimulated earlier on in life. So we envision this as enticing children to learn the basics of mathematics and other basic skills alike at a really young age. And in exchange for that, they can acquire points, they can acquire the digital valuta, which they can then bring to the physical Kidzonia or Kidzania location, and that they will actually have a reward and feel motivated to become one of the future scientists that this world so desperately needs. Then, of course, Kidzania is also about a community. And right now, we have a lot of different Kidzania locations, but we want to unify this, and we want to unify this digitally. So the stippled line you see in the middle is actually the breaking of the borders, because at first, the only thing that was limiting Kidzania from having a lasting impact not only on the children, but also on the world, is those physical borders. We want to take those away. We also want different Kidzanian locations to be connected to each other, to do business, to learn the basics of business, just by interacting with each other through that digital platform. And of course, a really nice thing that we saw when you sent us over the information was that it all started with the kids signing a Declaration of Independence. We want to take that moment out of history and we want to replant it in this new revolution in Kidzania, and we want them to sign a declaration of connectivity. And this declaration of connectivity is what will break those borders and what will bring everyone together in that one unified Kidzania. And what this will mean for the company is that continuous learning will be enforced, children will be more engaged, it will drive loyalty, and it will also drive visits, because the points that you acquire on that digital platform you can spend at the physical location. So the children will tell their parents more, Mom, Dad, please, let's go to the mall, I want to go to Kidzania again. And that's how we want to drive the benefit for your company, but also for the children, and the parents enjoy shopping as well, so it's not a burden on them that much either. But of course, these parents need to be convinced, because we forget to mention one thing, and I would like to stress that now. Of course, this is a big investment, so we also need a direct source of income, something that's on the short term. And parents normally don't like to pay for children's subscriptions. However, when the message is right, and the parents understand that it's for the children's education, and that's better than them watching Netflix or watching YouTube or doing 10,000 of other things that parents don't approve of, they'll be willing to pay. So what we intend to do, or what we recommend you to do, is to contact a marketing agency who you will make agreements on the basis of your branding and your core values and what you want to convey. And they will work out a concise marketing campaign that reaches the parents so that they will subscribe to your application and to your integrated platform.
So let's go back to our stakeholders again, because we complimented you before on aligning the interests of 5 such different groups, and our plan needs to be integrated in these 5 stakeholders as well. So when we look at the children, this extra digital element will make sure that they can enjoy the Kidzania experience at home as well, and it will increase their engagement, which again then increases the engagement of the parents who are taking them to the Kidsania locations again to use their acquired skills and spend their acquired points. For the schools and teachers, the content is an even more important part because they can be also taught at home this time with the students' motivation being leading instead of it being forced onto them. And for the malls, it will increase their traffic even more because loyalty is increased. And for the industry, this provides an additional opportunity to provide non-intrusive communication because now it can also be provided on the platforms itself through the products that are used in the stories, but also through developing the skills that they may want to entice the students to learn from a young age on, such as the STEM topics that Wesley talked about earlier. So this plan actually integrates with all of these stakeholders again, and now we need to look at the financial implications, I think.
So yeah, when we take a look at the financial projection, we think that we can reach 45% of the returning attendees, causing a commission rate of about 10%. By doing that, we actually have a potential of 300,000 families in the first year that could subscribe to our platform. However, not all these families do only have one child. So there are actually more child. So there's a unique amount of valued families estimated at 186,000 persons. The average monthly price will, like the ticket for our park, differentiate from GDP per capita per land. So in countries where people have much less to spend, the subscription fee will be lower. In the higher GDP areas, it will be higher. We estimate an average of about $4 by 2018, which will cause a yearly revenue of, in the end, 18 million per year. However, there will be a 50% cost of actually keep the development program running. So the margin is 50% of that. And now I would like to, yes, take you through the internal risk measures, because we think this peso is a huge problem. Internally, we could fix this by leading or lagging, which means we fasten or slow our payment in different currencies. By matching and clearing, because we have a lot of international appearance, we would like to pay the cost in US dollar with the revenue in US dollar. And by that, we eliminate the risk of the peso dropping. However, and we go there's also some external measures, we could consider options or even some term contracts. I will briefly take you through this, but in the end, we advise you to hire someone to cope with this risk, so you could focus again on your core competence, which is educating children. You shouldn't be doing this. However, the option is a derivative you pay a price for, and you can benefit from both a dropping currency as an extending currency, but it is at a price. However, by doing this, you can really eliminate your risk. With a term contract, which is a lot cheaper to buy, you can benefit from a dropping rate. However, you can't profit from an upper rate. But it's a lot cheaper to buy. We would advise to buy the option because the peso is at this moment fluctuating so heavily that you want to have benefit of a growing rate. This is one risk. I will take you now to some other risk mitigation. The devaluation we already talked about is mitigated by management, and the contingency would be to replace the headquarters. We wouldn't advise this in the first place though, because it takes a lot of effort to do it, and we think that you, as proud Mexicans, want to keep your headquarters in your own city. So it's the real last contingency you should make. There's also the risk that local legal hurdles, because we are advertising towards children, and not every culture can really appreciate this. So we want to try to persuade with local governments about our program, what we can offer and what we don't offer, in order to mitigate this risk. And if they are willing to actually cope with that, we could contingent that by limiting the locations. We can't face legal issues. The last but not least is the online downtime. Since this will be a huge part for our next operation, we need to keep this up. So we need backup servers to really keep the platform running at all time, at all cost. But however, if the backup servers even fail, we could mitigate this by saving everything to offline servers. So, and if we take a look at what will happen after the risk mitigation, we see that the likelihood and impact will drop.
So now to go back to the timeline really quick, there's some things to do. The timeline kind of recaptured everything we just said, so bear with me. Tomorrow, some of the things you want to do immediately are to start up the platform and to start procurement, also contract the marketing agency that Wesley spoke about earlier. Then in the 1 to 2 year period, the midterm, it is important to connect the platform to the communities, to make a content improvement system, make a way of getting an inflow of information, which will also be generated through the platform later, and also to determine new cities to expand to. One way to really spread the platform from the beginning is with the customers that we currently have, with all the sites that we're currently active at, spread the apps to the kids and the parents. And for the 3 to 5 years, it is important to expand the number of parks. We think that by this time the demand has already risen really high, and to globally focus on the Latin American countries. So to wrap everything up, how should Kidzania grow to maintain its market position and continue differentiating its brand? We believe that this is through extending the Kidzania experience beyond the parks. Thank you.
Thank you, team. You now have 10 minutes for the question and answer period.
Thank you very much. My question concerns comparing the financial outcomes of the various options. So you presented revenues for the option that you recommend. How did that compare to the other alternatives?
So, of course, it differentiates from the other alternatives. We think if we build a bigger park, it could generate more revenue. However, the competitive advantage of this company is that it differentiates by educating, and there is an international digital trend coming. So we think if we don't follow this trend, we get eliminated. So the revenue might be a little bit lower, but it's just to survive this digital trend. We need to cope with that.
And if I may add to that, this option is actually very scalable, which means that we don't necessarily project the revenue to be higher. However, it does have a potential to reach many different countries at the same time without it costing us anything extra. So the revenue potential could go through the roof in that sense.
Thank you. My question is around the content of the app or the program. As you know, there are all kinds of educational children's apps out there, and I know you discussed contracting someone to work on the platform with us, but I'd like to know if you had any preliminary thoughts on how we might differentiate this model moving forward.
Thank you. So your question is, how are we going to differentiate the content from the application to the other content providers in the edu entertainment environment, correct? Well, of course, the content should be strictly tied to your to the theme of your park. So this means that how do I put this? In order to ensure that the content is actually differentiated, it is important to give everything that Kidzania touch. So it means including the famous characters that you use. Because it's not only about learning for the children. The learning is actually more of the parent side of the value proposition. The children want to be entertained. They want to feel that they are part of Kidzania. That is what they want. They want the entertainment. They want the community. So bringing those elements that differentiate you as a brand into the application and integrating that with the educative touch, along with the partners that we've laid out for you, we think that that differentiates you enough from the competitors?
My question is around the risks of your proposed strategy. One of the major risks I see that I don't think you identified is if the uptake isn't as great as you predict. So 2 parts to that. Did you do a sensitivity analysis if it isn't as good as you predict? And how do we know when to pull the plug?
Wait, can you repeat the risk that we haven't identified one more time?
What if there's no subscriptions? What if nobody wants to subscribe to the app?
Okay, so I think it's very important to look at the core reason. And what might be one of the big roadblocks for no subscriptions in the first place is probably then the subscription fee. Probably because if something would be free, you would probably take it, but hey, we have to pay $3 to $5, or depending, of course, on the country that we're implementing it in. So that might stop people from actually going there. And a contingency for this, not a mitigation, but a contingency for this, might be to actually put the platform online for free and change the revenue model. And a really big revenue model of your company that your company's already doing very great is sort of like companies can come in and kind of like in subtle ways have their own booths. And the same principle can be also implemented online where we have sponsorship companies, in a way advertisements, but not displayed as advertisements directly. And it will also secure for the parents, they will know that the advertisements that the kids are getting is making the platform free and are also not weird advertisements generated by Google or any other ad agency. So they know the kids are safe.
Thank you. My question is, when you did your discussion and debate on the on this direction, when you look at the parents who are making the decision and the experiential part of it, and what I guess they would want, because they're the ones that are making the decisions, and if you're still having the mall, I take it, the locations and the bricks and mortar, and they're going to the mall. So how does it, I guess my question would be the experiential part of it, which is a big part of our organization at the location, you're going to put that on our platform. How do you see that as being a problem from what we do now?
So your exact question is how will we use that experiential part in the platform? What makes it more experiential than just the park, correct?
Exactly. I think the parents would be looking at that as the reason they take them to here.
Yeah. Okay, so let me start by answering that the main thing that we want to do is stopping that last border it's just the last border of your company. What you do is you prepare children for the future world. So they are home, they are children, they come to your park, they're adults. And then they come home and they take something from that adulthood and they learn from that in their childhood life. But that experience limits to the actual physical location, to the mall that they visit. What we want to do is we want to break that wall. We want children to be able to experience and to learn continuously, so that it doesn't become a situation like, my mom doesn't want to go to the wall, so I can't join you guys for some Kidzania fun educative games. But it's something that they can access anywhere and everywhere, so that it becomes such a huge part of their life that when they're 40, they'll still be talking to everyone like, how much have you learned from Kidzania? And we're afraid that that effect is limited if the experience is limited to just the malls.
Quick follow-up on that. So the actual stores in the malls, there'll be no new ones open. We'll be going online and they'll be experiencing it from home.
As I pointed out in the long-term plan, the actual stores that are open now will definitely stay open and will be used as touch points to promote the platform. And the idea of this platform is also to promote the idea to further expand the mall concepts also, because there's certain benefits to the malls and there's certain benefits to online, and they are in a way different. So we want them to complement each other. That's the ultimate strategy. So definitely we will, when more revenue is generated, expanding is also in the strategy, the plan.
So traditionally, we've been a company that has built things, and now we're going to be, I guess, an IT company. Have you considered what challenges that would lead to our management team, and what did you think about how we would overcome those?
Yeah, well, it's definitely not a core competence indeed that you identified correctly, that we manage the technology. So it's key to outsource as many of that as possible and to just manage the content like we are used to. But it could be wise to recruit a technology director on the board to oversee the interaction with this technology third party.
Thank you.
What I'm struggling with is we already have a differentiated product. How do we, what do we say to the board if the board asks us about that? Like, why would we, obviously you see it as a big risk that we lose our differentiation. What is the concern?
One thing we've noticed is that there's kind of a division between interests. Some of you want long-term goals, and some of you want short-term goals and profits. And the idea with this plan is that you can actually achieve both. An online platform is, out of all the options we have, actually one of the least expensive things to set up, yet it is also one of the most scalable options at the same time. So I think the board will be very happy with this option because it meets exactly what they want to see. And at the same time, the board members that are in it for the long term will also be very happy because the short-term profit can be reinvested in the company for the expansion of the parks and the physical locations, and also additionally, of course, the promotion of more online users of the platform.
Just a real quick one then. You know, you mentioned that it's the lowest cost offering. Do you have a rough sense of how much we can expect to spend, especially with outsourcing so much of this?
So the initial investment will be a little bit lower than expected. Was expected $60 million. We think it's actually lower because we want to implement it first in Southern Latin America and Mexico to save some of the culture costs, the translation costs, everything.
It's done now.